Welcome to the Albany Education Foundation Campaign Forum. My name is John Destin, and I'm an AEF board member, and I will be your host and moderator. Before we get to the candidates for the Albany Board of Education, I would like to tell you a little bit about the Albany Education Foundation. For over 25 years, we have been supporting Albany Public Schools through generous donations from the community. We allocate grants to teachers, and our commitment to students is unwavering as we have worked with the community to provide over $1 million in grants since our inception. AEF also showcases and honors our community members that have made a huge difference in the lives of students at our Hall of Fame ceremony. And I'm happy to say that we will be announcing the 2021 inductees this spring on March 21st. So that's 3/21/21, and fingers crossed, the award show will be live in person in the fall of 21. So stay tuned for more details. Okay, today we're going to get to our candidate forum. We hope to give you a little insight into the Board of Education candidates. Our questions were compiled in hopes of better understanding these candidates, not only their positions, but also where they see themselves fitting in with the current board. Let me explain some of the format, and this is what I shared with the candidates last week. We will have opening statements and closing statements. Our opening statements will be 2 minutes, and our closing statements will be 1 minute. I will be asking a total of 4 questions, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. In addition to my 4 questions, each candidate will have the chance to ask another candidate a question. We're calling this the candidate direct question. Who is asking who was determined randomly prior to taping, and the same time limit of 2 minutes will apply. Our first 4 questions were sent to the candidates last week to allow them to come back and really put some thought into their responses, with the exception, of course, of the candidate direct question, which will be spontaneously asked. I will be the time cop, and we will make sure we stay on schedule. In the background, like a ghost, is going to be another board member. That's Tamara Keller, who will be giving audio clues, spooky audio clues at 30 seconds and when there's 10 seconds remaining. With that being said, I'm going to ask the candidates if they have any questions. Otherwise, we will dive in. Candidates, any questions? All right. Prior to taping, we randomly chose the order for the Q&A. So we will begin with Brian, and then Melissa, and then Vani. So let's open with our opening statements. Brian, it's all you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Beal. I'm sure you're familiar with all 3 of us at this point. You know, I grew up here locally in Richmond. I got a bachelor's degree in mathematics from UC Berkeley. Went on and did a lot of things in life culturally, particularly I studied ancient Chinese art, which you can see, this is one of my favorites behind me with the 2 pandas, this very good friend of ours. People regularly bring these artworks, or used to, over from China. And so I wound up marrying a woman from China. We came here to Albany for the school. And my daughter's going to Cal Poly now. So it's kind of a time in my life, I see a big need. I've wanted to do something in public service for a long time. My original inspiration actually came from the earliest was actually when I was in 3rd grade, when I got called into the principal's office, or vice principal, Mr. Kerensky, and I'd done something, I got in trouble, and he looked, I don't remember anything else that anyone said in almost at all for school, except a couple things. And he looked at me, and he said, someday, Brian, you could be Attorney General of the United States of America. And I was like, I didn't know what that was. And so as time went along, then other people have inspired me. I got involved in the community. My sister is involved at the state level. And so, yeah, I'm following my sister's footsteps, and I want to help out Albany with some of the urgent needs that we have. And it looks like the school district has some of the most urgent needs, particularly, I think, the parents of the disabled. So I'll look forward to telling you more, and thank you so much, Albany Education.
All right, thank you, Brian. And here is our opening statement from Melissa.
Hello, thank you for having this forum and giving us the chance to talk to you and people get to know us better in case they haven't watched the other forums. My name is Melissa Boyd. I have lived in Albany for the last 7 years. I have 2 daughters who are in Albany public schools. My older girl is in 6th grade at the middle school and was at Marin Elementary before. And my younger daughter is in 3rd grade at Marin, and before that did transitional kindergarten at Albany Children's Center. For the last 2 years, I've been an officer in the district's Black Parent Advisory Group, which is a group where we have members that are parents, administrators, teachers across school sites. And also about 2 years ago, myself and a couple other parents at Marin Elementary formed the IDEA Committee, IDEA standing for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. And for the last 2 years, I've been one of the co-officers leading that committee as well. I would say that really over this time of long distance learning and sheltering in place and all of the COVID-19 pandemic mixed in with all of the racial unrest and everything that we've been dealing with right now, the IDEA committee started meeting twice as frequently as it used to. We used to meet monthly. We started meeting every couple of weeks. And through doing that work with other parents, with teachers and administrators, and really thinking about all of the different members of our community who have different needs, different access to resources, and the ways in which we're at a real risk of certain people being left behind or more left behind than they have been in the past, based on the unique challenges that we're facing right now, is really a large part of what brought me to want to serve on the board and really advocate for those different members of the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. And Vani, your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Vani, or Veronica Davidson. I have 2 young children. My youngest is a 1st grader at Cornell, my oldest is a 1st grader at Cornell, and my youngest is going to be in kindergarten next year. He's 4 right now. I was born in Albany and then actually grew up in Berkeley and went to Berkeley Public Schools, and then went to Mills College where I got a degree in child development, and then went on to teach after that. I was a paraeducator at Cornell and last year taught 1st grade there. And I'm really excited to stay a part of the education community in Albany. Our brewery's been supporters of the Albany Education Foundation, and we think that this is a great way to show that the Albany community really supports our schools. And I'm really excited to help transition our classrooms back into action and support our families during this really challenging time. I've worked with alternative education for the past 10 years. So I've tutored students who
keeping us in suspense what type of students these were. Okay, so she froze up a little. I'm going to assume she's coming back. Hey, Bonnie. Hey,
sorry.
Bonnie, sorry. That's okay.
No.
You were telling us about the type of students that you were working with.
Cool. For some reason, this part of our house sometimes cuts out on the internet. Should be better. Do you want me to start over or just go there?
Just go there.
Okay. So I have tutored students with many different backgrounds and needs. I've worked inside of the schools to support students, and then supported students who are alternatively educated, so homeschooled or using online programs through the state or independent study through districts for various reasons. It's given me a really good understanding of all the different types of learners that are out there and the different needs that we have to support in our classrooms and surrounding our classrooms. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Vani. We've got to go with the flow here, right? We know how difficult it is for the students distance learning and their internet goes out and how frustrating that is. So,
it happens. Or the teachers freeze or disappear from the Zoom for a minute.
And it's never the ones you want, right? All right. So let's go to question number one, and it's going to start with Melissa. So Melissa, this is your question to start with, and then we'll go around. We would love for you to share a personal story from your days as a student where a teacher made a difference in your life or even maybe changed your trajectory.
Sure, and thank you for this question because it required me to think of it, which was fun to kind of go back in time. So when I was in kindergarten, I was taught by Miss Nancy Smith, who is a wonderful lady, and among just being a kind, caring person, she also advocated for me with my mom to be put into the school's Gifted and Talented program in the first grade, and then I continued in that program from first through third, and then left the school. There were race issues involved. That's a different story for a different day. But suffice it to say that there was a little bit of advocacy that was required in order for me to be given the same opportunity to be placed in that program. And this was a white woman, majority white school. And she looked at me and saw what my potential was and what my abilities were, and did not make decisions about what I could do based on my race, and worked with my mom and put me on that path forward to be able to sort of strive at the level that I was able to achieve at. And that's clearly important for my personal life, just to know that I can be challenged and that I can be sort of seen. And also just when you think about the issues that we talk about right now with achievement gaps and the importance of teachers really being able to see their students and to not have any sort of preconceptions about what children can or cannot accomplish based on any part of their identity or their background, or what teachers might think they see, or what administrators might think they see about their families, etc. And so I feel lucky to have had that woman in my life so early on in my education, and I just think that it's so important for our teachers to really see students and give them the chances to strive.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. So Vani, it's your question. If you could share a personal story about a teacher that maybe made a real difference.
Well, again, just like Melissa, this really made me think. I've had many wonderful teachers through time, so it was hard to kind of zoom back and pick just one. The one I really remember making a huge difference was I had just transferred elementary schools right after third grade into fourth grade. And I was struggling with math. It was really hard, and I didn't really know anyone at the new school. And they had a math teacher who came into the fourth, fifth, and sixth grades as a specialist. And he was amazing. His name was Daryl Laura, and he rode his bike everywhere, which I thought was super cool. And then he started every math lesson with a joke, and there was kind of a riddle that went along with it. And he would handwrite all of his math worksheets that he gave us and then photocopy them. And it was just so much of a personal touch. But he also really, really, really encouraged me to stick with it and get my multiplication facts down. They were hard for me, and really master that to a point where I think had I not had that experience, I might have given up on math, and I might not have really pursued my passion for mathematics. And that's something I think, especially girls and just a lot of students in school are not encouraged in math. And we've actually just been reading about this sort of skill and drill and the rote memorization where that causes math anxiety for students. And I'm so fortunate that I didn't develop that because I was encouraged at that young age. And then just today I was able to tutor a student in some really, really challenging math, and he's a sophomore, and we figured it out, and he got to the next point and understood it thoroughly. And I attribute that all back to this teacher that I had starting me out.
Thank you, Vani. That's great. And Brian, could you share a story from a great teacher you've had that maybe made a difference?
I have a lot of teacher stories. This one, Veronica actually changed the one I was going to talk, but the way the question was worded, a teacher, and it's a bit of a stretch to say it was my teacher. The teacher that made the biggest difference in my life was Professor Aaron Strauss, who is a math professor at the University of Maryland, a friend of my dad that took an interest in me at the age of 10. And he taught me directly advanced mathematics. I learned calculus when I was 12 years old. I actually got credit for it later, but the thing is this made a huge difference in my confidence levels. for the rest of my life. Now, I haven't used mathematics that much, but it's always been this door opener that, because people do have challenges with it, and so it's been a door opener and impressor. I think now it's kind of morphed into my computer skills. I do use a little bit of math, but that was probably the biggest thing. Just someone taking an interest in me and showing me something a little bit ahead, and then it was a case where it helped me with the basic stuff. Now, in general, I really recommend master the basics first, and there was a lot of that. So he gave me a book on motivation, and one of the big. How many seconds is that?
30 seconds left.
30 seconds. Okay, so I forgot to do my own timer in this. So the thing that intrigued me was what you could use mathematics for, and I think that's probably most people don't know, but our whole society is based on the teachings, not of Pythagoras himself, but his school, and none of this would have been possible without math. So.
Thank you, Brian. All right, we're going to go to question number 2 now, and this one we're going to start with Vani. And the question is, schools will begin opening for in-person classes sometime in the future. What advice would you give the district that would help ensure the smoothest transition for everybody involved?
Well, we need to start planning now. We need to start thinking of a plan and getting a plan in action. I was just attending the board meeting virtually last night, and I liked that our board members urged the superintendent to call a special meeting about this on October 6th and really take it seriously that the community needs more responsiveness. I'd also like us to look to other entities for what has been successful and what has been challenging in the reopening process. We're not the only ones to do this, and we're not the first ones to do this. So luckily we have some guidance to look to. We need, like I said, a thoughtful plan to move forward that actually meets the needs of the community and is responsive to the needs of our small community, which may be different than other districts. So we need to really take that into consideration. This is a challenging situation any way you look at it. There's nothing ideal, but more comprehensive thought process towards what will actually work and what has been tried. We're not going to just follow other districts blindly, and I don't think we'll try to just put patches on that don't actually work within our own district. So that would be my strongest urging there.
All right, thank you, Vani. Brian, you're next. We'd love to see or hear what kind of advice you might give to ensure a smooth transition when schools open.
Yeah, on this one, I would comment that I'm extremely satisfied so far from the board meetings that I've watched. I really like the direction that Superintendent Wells is taken. I think it's going very smoothly. And I think I agree a lot with what Veronica said. Communication is going to be very important. I like the idea of doing it in stages, that we're doing like the younger grades first because they're deemed to be the most vulnerable and the most challenging. I think some of the concerns that have been raised about students' social life do need to be addressed. And this is another lesson that just in reflecting back on my life as a student and how it's all turned out, it's pretty clear to me that the students that are the most successful have the best social network so that they can help each other out with things. And so I think we've lost a lot of that. And people, the closures affected some people disproportionately. So we need to somehow help them catch up. And so I think it's going to be a case of applying more resources to the most effective and maybe less to the, people in my class that, there's a lot of, we have money, we have good internet, but actually on the internet now, I think everybody's having trouble. Lately, I think it's getting overloaded. So those are some of the things. I think, just being careful to listen to public comment. I think it's a dynamic situation. So we're going to have to be ready to reel back if we have to. But ultimately, I think health is the top consideration, but there's other considerations as well. Is that the first bell?
That's the second bell.
Oh, so good. 15, 13.
5 seconds.
5. Oh, okay. 5. That's what I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Melissa, so what advice would you give as schools are going to be opening?
Sure, thank you. So I would agree with, well, I agree with everything that has been said so far, but Brian just mentioned communication, which is something that I was going to say as well. I've heard from some of the parents who have had particular difficulty during this time period. What's been difficult for them is an inability to kind of plan what arrangements need to be made, especially if they don't have someone who's necessarily able to sort of be at home, or even if they are at home, not able to be personally supporting their children through their learning. And so I would definitely encourage the district to have as much communication in place with families and with all members of the community of the school district as possible, even if you're kind of delivering either we don't know what's happening yet or news that is going to be disappointing. I think it's important to keep those lines of communication open. And then I would also say, just stress how important it is that the district attempt to achieve equity and not just equality, by which I mean that in addition to doing a phased reopening with regard to, smaller students and then, older, larger students, there are people in the district who are really suffering disproportionately right now with this long distance learning, whether it's because it's hard to have an adult be at home with children, whether they're essential workers or doing some other type of work and not able to be at home, or for children who learn differently and for whom, whether it's, honoring their individual, their IEPs, or just providing the sort of learning and attention that they need, that they're really not able to learn or to learn effectively, and families aren't able to have the support that they need to support their children in this long distance environment. And so within being safe, of course, first and foremost, I'm really hoping that we can, as a district, really sort of advocate for and sort of rally behind and really support those members of our community who particularly need to be back on campus sooner than, my own children, for instance. As much as I would love for them to be back at school for a number of reasons, I recognize that there are those who need to be there more urgently than my children.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. And we are going to move on to question number 3. And I think Brian was going to kick this one off. Hey, Brian.
Sorry, I was just greeting my loved one.
Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Greeting the loved ones. So let me tell you, number 3, besides opening for in-person learning, can you share with us your top priority? Now, seriously, just one, because you must have many, but just one that you would like to see happen in your first year as a board member, and what can you do to ensure that it will happen?
Yeah, I think I missed the part about it not having anything to do with Can it have something to do with reopening?
You've got a minute and 45 seconds to say anything.
Okay, I think it's not reopening directly, but it's addressing the fallout from reopening. That's what I envisioned as, or not the fallout from reopening, but the fallout from the closure. And as I mentioned earlier, there's been a disproportionate impact on some people. So I want to try to see how we can get people at the end of the school year, have them so that they're where they would have been. I guess my big concern is that people might have to, repeat a grade or something. It might set them back a year. So I think, and this falls in line with equity, but I think more or less I'm going to follow the lead of the existing board members for the first year. But in terms of initiative, ethnic studies is something I want to talk about, but I don't think I'm going to do many new initiatives on my part the first year. I think I'm going to follow the lead of the other board members. And that's what I got to say.
All right. Thank you, Brian. So Melissa, what would be your top priority if you could only choose one, again, outside of reopening the schools?
Right. Thank you. So outside of reopening the schools and, making sure we're not just kind of at zero budget wise, because then you can't really do anything. But I'm going to kind of skip over that and assume that we're okay there. I would really love to contribute to diversifying the curriculum. I've been so impressed getting to listen to, as Bonnie mentioned, the board meeting last night, getting to listen to the high school students who are advocating with Dawn, diversify our narrative, and also the teachers as well in the English department and the social studies department, who are really working with students and listening to students and supporting those efforts and moving forward on those efforts themselves. I think right now in particular, during this time of sort of racial unrest that has always existed, but is kind of has a light shown on it right now, or a magnifying glass kind of put up to it. And I think members of our community are realizing kind of what we didn't learn, what we don't know, and I think that it's so important to try to supplement with all the wonderful resources that already exist, so that students can see all of the different accomplishments of all of the different members of our society, people of different, different identities all across the board, and also the importance of working with teachers, so that this is not, sort of a finger pointing, this should be different or this should be better. It's really something where people need to collaborate and listen to each other and really talk about what our shared goals are, which is to provide the best and most sort of well-rounded education that we can for our students, and let them feel affirmed and let them feel reflected in the works that they're studying and in the achievements that they're studying, to know that they contributed to those achievements as well.
All right. Perfect timing. Thank you, Melissa. And Bonnie, what would be your top priority, again, besides the schools opening?
Trust between the board members, district staff, teachers, parents, and then our students. I want to increase our clear communication and make sure that all parties, especially the teachers and the parents, feel that their input is really being heard. I think that our public forums are really loud and overwhelming sometimes, our public comments, and I don't think that it gives people the real chance to have their voices heard. And I don't know if we have a solid enough protocol in place to give parents, teachers, district staff, even older students the time to really share. And this is something I reflected on after Melissa made some really good comments about this, to do that active listening and that quiet listening, and really make sure that we're hearing the voices and we're hearing what people want. And that's going to make people feel like they can trust all of us and that we have their best interest in mind. I read an article about a district, I'm blanking on it, in Southern California, that was able to reopen all of their schools. And they said one of the key factors was trust. The staff trusted that the district and the board were going to do what was in their best interest. The parents trusted that the district was going to do what was safest for their students and their families and best for all of them. And then the district staff and the board had to trust that the community was going to follow through and do the safest things as well. And so once you can establish that trust, which comes with open communication, then we can make all of these other changes happen, which are incredibly valuable changes as well.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Vonnie. Now we're going to move on to our last question that I'm going to ask tonight. And it might need a little explanation, but this is going to start with Melissa. Melissa, do you see your presence on the board more as a vitamin or more as an aspirin? And a vitamin being more fortifying, and an aspirin is kind of more of a painkiller.
Okay, so points on the creative question. I'm going to go with a vitamin. The way that I looked at it was something that you take repeatedly and continually, and not something that you're taking sort of at one point to kind of address one specific issue. And my thinking with that is both as far as what I've talked about as far as advocating for members, different members of our group, be they those who learn differently or members of different racial, ethnic groups, have different gender identities, orientation, et cetera, socioeconomic background. I think that it's really important for us to start to think of advocating for all of those groups of people as a part of the regular work of the day, not something special that happens sort of special interest or when it's thought about, but really a key central part of all decision making needs to focus on not just those who are the majority, but all of the different members of our community that really make our community great and make it what it is. And so I think that it's really important to think about that in terms of all decisions that are being made. I also think that, and as Veronica was pointing out, something that I've talked about before is the importance of really listening to each other, giving each other the benefit of the doubt. I'm someone who builds bridges. I am interested in making coalitions. I'm not one who's, kind of big on ego. I am happy to have my mind changed if I learn something new. And I don't profess to know everything or to have lived every experience, even though I try to be an empathetic and sort of well-read and well-listened person. We all need to learn from each other and listen to each other's experiences. And I think especially in times like this, where it's very challenging and people are dealing with so much and things are so stressful, it's just particularly important to make sure that we're hearing each other, that we're assuming the best of each other, and that we're really trying to make bridges with each other.
Thank you, Melissa. Vani, are you a vitamin or an aspirin?
Well, I love this question. It's so nice to see some different ones because we're answering a lot of the same ones. So it's kind of fun to have this in there. I chose vitamin just based on the fact that I don't like temporary fixes. I don't like to cover up problems. I like to actually solve problems. And watching our more recent board meetings, there is a cohesion building and there's increased kindness happening right now. And I'd like to support this continuing forward. This is a model for our entire community. And so I'm also a vitamin because I don't like to have the fleece pulled over my eyes. I don't like to be deceived. I like to explore multiple perspectives and really understand issues and go out and talk to people and hear the input to make sure that I'm hearing from more of the voices and not just the loudest voices. I feel like we've talked about that a lot. Like we really want to hear the people. We really want to know what everybody needs. That can be overwhelming. But as I've learned in my recent experiences in working on some things with this city, there are some loud voices and they are consistent voices and they have a message. And there are a lot of other voices who are just going through their days who might not otherwise be heard. So being at the park with my kids and just striking up a conversation with someone else and hearing their experience and what's going on for them has changed my perspective on a lot of things recently. It's changed my ideas about, hey, this is a positive of the Zoom learning and this is really the need of it. And this need is different from my own child's need. And we meet it this way. I'm also, I feel like I'm a vitamin because I can stay sort of all the different veins. I am connected with the teachers. I'm connected with the parents. I'm connected with our businesses since I'm a small business owner. I'm connected with our community leaders. So I think that for me, that's part of being a fortifying vitamin as well.
All right. Thank you, Vani. We're all patiently waiting to see if we have an aspirin running or not. Do we, Brian?
Actually, have you ever heard of Chinese medicine?
Tell us.
I'm very fond of it. So I like something that treats the holistic patient. Chinese medicine talks about 5 elements. There's different things. But be more direct, I'd say it's going to change. The first year it's going to be more like an aspirin. And as we go on, it's going to be more like a vitamin. I think initially there's really going to be a lot of just fixing the fallout. It does depend. I think now from the news that came out this last week, it seems likely that we'll be well into reopening when we take office. But that said, I think at the beginning it's going to be more like we got to deal with people's pain, deal with the pain from this virus, and then going on, I think it's going to be more talking about the things like equity, and we're going to be talking about energy efficiency and the financial issues facing the school. I think ethics studies, are something I want to help with because I'm hearing we're going to be able to kind of design our own now to a greater extent. So I think I would say that it's going to be adaptable. I'm going to give what I think is needed and what I'm able to give at the time. And that's pretty much, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Well, that concludes our top 4 questions, and now we've come to the spontaneous part, where we asked each of you to prepare 2 questions for 2 of the candidates, but we're only going to ask 1. And Vani, I believe it's your turn, and we randomly selected Brian for you. So would you please ask Brian a question?
Yeah. This was hard. There's so many things I want to get to know and hear, and I think are important for all of us to share out there. So I think that for Brian, what I'd like to know is, what's your just overall favorite part of living in Albany, and how has that, played into who you are and what you're bringing to the school board?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. That's a really, thank you for that question. And I think the thing that I really like the most about Albany is the sense of community service here. That it just seems like everybody is on some sort of committee or something, and it's just amazing to me that it's such a small town, yet there seem to be more civically engaged people here than any other community that I've lived in, and it's always, it's a very civil dialogue, but I don't know how people have this much time to do all the things. You look at, it's always just a few people that really do the most, but then there's a lot of people. There are a lot of commissions in Albany, and I think specifically, I like the fact that there's young people involved in the commissions, that we're getting them involved at an early age. And I think in terms of, the democracy and everything, the time that we're in right now, this is really important. This could be very important for the kids to understand the world they're going to be living in, because it's going to be different. It's going to be different, and it's going to be different from even someone in, say, 10th grade today. The world we think they're going to live in 2 years it's just not going to be that world, and so we've got to be studying it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Great question, Vani. And Brian, you are going to be asking Melissa.
Okay, so on that note, this one requires a little bit of just little explanation, because Melissa, you're an attorney, so I know there's certain things you can and cannot say, but I'm just looking kind of for a basic kind of what's the basic steps that don't involve you having to make a legal opinion or something. What are some of the obvious basic steps the district can take to protect themselves from some of the lawsuits we've had? So that's my question. And if you have to qualify it or you need a different question, I understand.
Thank you. So do you mean in returning to school, like during the pandemic time, or? Sorry.
No, this is in general. Like we had a lawsuit, like we had an Instagram lawsuit. The city gets lawsuits against it. What are just some basic things, that we can do, or even as school board members, what are the things that we can do to kind of just stay out of trouble?
Thank you for that question. I think that individual matters as they arise, like the issue with the racist posts and the Instagram situation would be certainly different than I know issues that have arisen in the past in connection with students with disabilities or who learn differently and being able to be adequately served by our district. And so, they would all be different. I would say overall, and this isn't a specific, as a lawyer, this is kind of just a general sort of thought about it, is just that I think that it's very important to make sure that we are highlighting and amplifying the voices of the different members of our community. With the Instagram situation, one of the things that I think was most difficult for the families who were dealing with that is that I don't know that they always felt like they were sort of heard and seen, and that their concerns and their pain was really understood and respected, and sort of given the focus that it required. And being a lawyer, I know that, you can't discuss certain things if they're confidential, et cetera, but I think that it's just so important to make sure that all of our different members of the community, especially those who have dealt with or continue to deal with discrimination or particular sort of targeted difficulty, and who are smaller members of the group and have, kind of quieter voices perhaps, that those people are specifically asked to present at board meetings, that we are, attending meetings of the disability squad, of, the Black parent group, Familias, Latinas, et cetera, and really making individual members of our community feel like they have a voice and like their needs are important. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. And we're gonna go right back to you, Melissa, because you're gonna be asking Bonnie a question.
Yes. Bonnie, I would just ask, and this might kind of overlap, but just given the fun of the campaign process and all that goes into that, and then the service on the board and the hours and all of that, I would just ask you, what are the things that kind of pushed you over to make you sort of want to throw your hat in the ring, or what are the things that you're most excited about potentially serving on the board?
Well, it is a big time commitment, and I think only because of the circumstances this year did I feel really ready to do it right now. I am not teaching in the district, and I actually felt a big loss when that ended, and that was just because of how our contracts are written and how things transitioned. But it also has been a huge benefit for me because I am at home with my kids, and I went back to work when both of my kids were really, really young. I took them with me, luckily, but at 5 weeks old, I was back teaching my groups of students with both my kids, and I don't think I gave myself that time to enjoy them. So I'm enjoying them a lot right now, but I really, really miss being more a part of our district and giving more in our community. So that's kind of been a huge thing I've seen as a balancing factor, is if I'm on the school board, I can have that engagement, but it also happens a little bit at hours when I won't lose my time with my own children. So it's a huge benefit for me on that end. I always have more to do than there are hours in the day, and I take on a lot of things, and this has been kind of my year of streamlining and focusing in on our other business, trying to make sure it survives. And this just seems like that nice little supplement for me to stay involved in education in Albany and really continue supporting in Albany in a way that I can lead and show sort of my views on all of it. It was a little bit surprising in our time doing Albany Inside Out, working with this city, how some things sort of, how the layered nuances all work out. And it really inspired me to move my way into the school board so that I can sort of be more a part of the background discussions.
Now it's time for closing statements, and I believe, Brian, you are leading off again. But you need to unmute. Keeping us in suspense.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Couldn't find the mouse. So I'm Brian Beal. I've been around politics in Albany a long time. I've got the endorsement of the California Democratic Party. I'm working with some people that are helping me understand things really well, looking at what's going on around the state. I think I can make a big difference in the Albany School District with my skills having to do with computers, emergency management, and things like this. I think in technology, it's going forward, I think after we get out of the woods, we'll be able to do some really great things. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'll ask you for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Closing statement from Melissa.
Thank you. And again, thank you for the opportunity and also for all of the just awesome, important work that AEF does in the community. So I'm Melissa Boyd. As I've said, being able to advocate for all of the different members of our group, different backgrounds, different identities is very important to me and is a motivating factor for me, especially during this time where allocation of resources is so important and individual attention is so important. I'm also an attorney, as was mentioned, and perhaps that has something to do with it, or I don't know, sort of chicken egg, how it works out, but I think that I am somebody who keeps a level head, can address difficult problems and kind of break them apart into their smaller pieces, and just sort of work through to get things done, and kind of connect the dots, ask for research when we need it, evidence when we need it, and to move forward in a way that is not that is impassioned, as in this work that we're doing, it involves our children and our families, and so this is not something that we want to be, you know, robotic about, but in a way that is reasonable, and that is listening to all the different stakeholders, and listening to everyone at the table.
Thank you. And your closing statement, Vonnie.
So I'm eager to work with the members of the board, and hopefully one of these other members here. It's been a really cool process getting to see both of you and do this campaigning. I am an educator for my whole life. That's all I've ever wanted to be, is someone who supports children and makes creative learning happen. I really believe in supporting the whole child, and part of that is supporting the whole family. As a young parent, I'm just entering my time in the district, so I'm really looking forward to the future of Albany Unified and how I can support Albany. That was at the wrong time, right? So I'm really looking forward to staying a part of the school community and supporting our learners. I'm also a business owner in our city, so I'm really invested due to that. I have been actively volunteering to support our small business community during these COVID times with Albany Inside Out. And I want to continue just giving what I can give to help everyone else. I'm really turned off by all the buzzers. I'm sorry.
I know. Next year we'll have to figure out a better solution. I think I like it when Tamara just says time. That might be a better way to go. But hey, you guys did an amazing job. I am so excited to have such great people that we could vote for. It's just too bad we can't put 3 of you on. Maybe we can just extend the number of people on the board. You know, maybe it should be, you know, like let's not go there. Hey,
actually, you stole my idea, John. I already suggested that.
Yeah,
you can't have a majority then.
Oh wait, that was city council. I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah. Okay, we're not going to go there tonight. I want to again thank you. I also want to personally thank you guys for stepping into the arena, because like I said earlier, this is not an easy thing to do, and it's really it's extremely commendable, especially during these unprecedented times with unprecedented challenges. And anyone who's watching this, I will urge you to vote, vote, vote. Tuesday, November 3rd is the last day you get to vote, so make sure you get out there, send in your ballots as soon as you get them, or whenever. Just vote, vote, vote. And finally, please check out our Albany Education Foundation's website for more information. It's a great community organization. We're at albanyeducation.org. You see it right over here. So thank you, everybody. All right. Bye.
Bye now.